Hey, Christy Mattoon here with Rewire, coming to you today to talk to you about the stress chemicals that can actually make you sick and make you not feel well. This is going to be part 2 in the series that I'm working on right now about subconscious stress and what it does to you and how it can affect your life. So I'm grateful that you're here. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to my channel here on YouTube, ring the bell for notifications, and we're going to jump right in. So one of the things that we want to talk about is balance in your system. What does balance look like? How does it feel inside of your body, especially when you're starting to get symptoms and issues, or maybe you've just started noticing patterns or things that you're repeating over and over in your life that you're like really tired of doing and you just want to do it different and you can't quite figure out how. That's what we're going to talk about today, is what are the chemicals associated with these kind of things, with patterns, with issues, with symptoms that reoccur in your life over and over and you can't quite figure out. Which ones are they? What are they doing? And how do we get them back under control? So if you take a look at all of these rocks balancing one on top of each other, that's what you want to kind of think of your body as. You want to bring everything into alignment so that it's all working symbiotically with each other. So I want you to take a look at this dashboard real quick with me. This is actually from the work of Judith Glaser in Conversational Intelligence. And what she was talking about here was about how to have conversations on a level of high up in corporations and places like that, right? So conversational intelligence. But this is the same kind of conversation that we can have inside of our own bodies with ourselves. And it involves exactly the same chemicals and the same parts of the brain. So if you look at the little rainbow that she has right at the top here, this is a conversational dashboard is what she calls it. And if you start towards the back of it where it's more red, that's toward the back of the head where the primitive brain is. So you're looking at something she calls resistor and skeptic. When you're in that mode, you're in the down regulation of chemicals. You're in a down regulation of hormones. What that causes inside your system is excluding, judging, limiting, withholding. You're dictating, right? You're criticizing. You're in a negative emotional place. And we all know that that's not a good place to be in. So if you come around the top of that arch and that rainbow, at the top of it, you'll see wait and see. And that's where we're starting to develop trust, either trust with ourselves, or if you're talking in correlation to conversation around a table with a bunch of executives, it's trust with each other, right, in conversation. If you're talking about trust within yourself, it's exactly the same thing, right? It's the same chemicals. And as you're coming around the top of that rainbow, the next thing you see is experimenter. When you're swapping out the negative chemicals in your system for more positive ones, you come all the way from in resistance within yourself all the way to the top of that at wait and see, where you're beginning to start to trust your motives and what you're doing. And then you're moving into experimentation, which is an upregulation of the chemicals and hormones in your system. And those would be things like including. It would be appreciating, expanding, sharing, discovering, developing, and even celebrating. Right? As you come all the way around, she has it labeled co-creator. What happens when you're the co-creator of your life? When you're a co-creator inside your own system, that's when amazing things can start to happen. The chemicals that we're actually talking about here on the downregulation side are basically cortisol and adrenaline. Those are also the chemicals of stress that, when left in your body for a lengthy period of time, can start to cause things like inflammation, blowing up your gut, which will cause heart issues. There's documented evidence, scientific proof of this. Over time, inflammation, body-wide chronic inflammation, will literally tear your body apart. It will tear joints apart. It'll tear organs apart. It'll tear lymph glands. It'll tear apart, like pretty much every system inside your body will start to come undone. When you can replace those chemicals and keep a higher level of chemicals, meaning oxytocin, dopamine, and serotonin in your system over a long period of time, all of a sudden you'll start to get an upregulation. You'll start to feel appreciated. You'll start to feel more expansive, being able to share with others, wanting to discover new things and develop and even celebrate your own life. So she was talking about this around a board table with a bunch of executives or with team members. And I'm talking about it when you pull it inside yourself and use it inside for your own personal use, right? Conversational intelligence within yourself makes a huge difference on an emotional level. Let's take a quick look at another one here. I want to talk to you for a second about how Judith Glaser actually says the brain really works. And this is just super interesting to look at. So we're talking about regulating cortisol, which is the excluding, judging, limiting, withholding, knowing, dictating, criticizing part of you from the primitive brain, right? We call it an amygdala hijack. When all the stuff, all the chemicals that are in your body turn mostly to cortisol and adrenaline, it's basically like you've hijacked yourself because you allow that to happen. You actually have some essence of control of this, probably way more than you have any idea of. And it's as easy as going from this lower side where you're regulating in cortisol to where you're regulating in oxytocin. It's as easy as thinking of something that you like. And so you can do that real quick. Here's your exercise for today, is to think of something that you like and feel it in your system. What does it feel like? When you're pulling oxytocin, dopamine, and things like serotonin into your system, it's going to feel different than when you're sitting in cortisol and adrenaline. You're going to use a different part of your brain. We're up in the emotional center, you're up in the executive brain, that prefrontal cortex, and suddenly you totally feel differently. So find that thing that you like. Access a memory from inside your brain. Think about something that you like for a second. What does it feel like? What are you noticing? Just sit with that for a second. Now I want you to think of something that you don't like, something that makes you go blah. Notice what it feels like. People sometimes will have a hard time thinking of this, especially after just having thought about something that they like. I'll tell you, my go-to, one that's really easy to find, is always stepping in dog poop. Super easy to find. What does it feel like? Don't go into that too much. What does it make your system feel like? Not so good, right? You feel the difference? Now think about that thing you like again. Right? You're bringing yourself back into the prefrontal cortex. You're bringing yourself back into that emotional center. And all of a sudden you'll start to balance out. You'll start to realign yourself. And just notice how you feel. The chemicals of stress, when you go back and think about what we talked about in the first part of this series, we talk about the epigenetic influence and your environment. Part of your environment is the chemicals that you're soaking yourself in. And whether you're doing it on purpose or not, doesn't matter. Whatever chemicals you're allowing your body and your organs to soak in and sit in is going to depict how you feel in the next moment. Just now you thought about something that you like, and then you thought about something that you don't like. How fast did it take to go from one feeling to the next? It's pretty super quick. It didn't take a long time at all. And so I want you to think about that as you go through your day. And every time you notice yourself being in those down-regulated feelings, even if it's just talking to somebody, become super aware of how you're talking to people. Are you judging? Are you excluding? Because if you're doing any of that kind of stuff, are you limiting yourself? Are you limiting others? Are you withholding from yourself, from others? Right? Dictating, criticizing? You're in that down-regulation of chemicals. If you want to upregulate yourself and bring yourself to a different experience, think about something you like. Find the feeling first. It's not really the memory that we want, it's the feeling. We want to teach those chemicals how to stay inside your body. Right? You want that feeling of inclusion, of appreciation, of expansiveness, of sharing. Right? Where you can be developing and where you can be celebrating things. That's where we want to be. So what this dashboard allows you to do, let me make this bigger. So what this dashboard allows you to do is it allows you to move from outside of yourself and outside of your experience to inside of yourself. Now on this, you're going to notice it says moving from I to we, because she's talking about in correlation to a corporation setting, to executives, to a boardroom, to people working with each other. And I'm talking about you working with inside yourself. So you're moving not from I to we, you're moving from wherever you're at to I. I want you to take yourself from wherever you're at, from where you're not, wherever you are not trusting yourself, wherever you are stuck without hope, from wherever you are lost in a world full of so many things, to begin to start to see that you have more power and more ability to change your own reality than you've ever thought of before. If you're feeling like you're resisting, if you feel like you're self-sabotaging, if you feel like you're, skeptical of everything, if you feel depressed, anxiety-ridden, highly emotional, all of these kind of negative ideas, I want you to give yourself a little bit of time and keep looking for that feeling that you like. Think about that thing. Even if you have to access it from the memory to start with, think about something that you like that will pull you forward into more of an experimenter place, or into co-creation even. When you can feel a little bit better because of the chemicals in your system, everything can start to change. So the bottom of this, I'm just going to read it to you. It says, a conversational dashboard enables us to recognize the quality of your interactive dynamics, the level of trust you and others are operating with. So for you, this is like trust inside yourself. How do you trust yourself and feel better? You have to operate with those higher chemicals inside your system, and you can do that just by a thought. So that's what I want you to practice until the next video, until part 3. In part 3, we are talking about how these chemicals of stress actually relate to your subconscious mind, and how that interacts and how it works, and then how we can start to desynchronize that a little bit. So I'll see you on video 3.